Okay, fantastic. Right, so just a very quick introduction. My name's Lorna Crust. I teach at Marjorie McClure Special School in South East London. We are a youth sport trust lead inclusion school, and the virtual pool evolved during COVID as a support group to connect, support and share ideas for school swimming. Today we're going to be looking ahead at the next academic year and hoping to give you some inspiration for planning your swim programme and give you some ideas on what to include and what to consider. So let's have a look at the aims of tonight's workshop. So we're going to be exploring what to include in your swim programme, both in school and at the pool. We're going to look at how you assess your swimmers even before they get in the pool. So what assessment criteria are you going to use? How are you going to assess the swimmers when they get to the pool? We're going to look at some fun, purposeful activities for warm-ups, contrast activities, and how to deliver water safety, and look at how to keep swimmers safe in the water through your teaching. We're going to look at some thematic approaches, and just at the end of the workshop, we'll just consider about including an inclusive gala or competition into your swim programme. So before we go further into what to do at the pool, we just want you to think about, delve into worth considering some activities that can be taught in school. It's really important because this will save valuable time at the pool and maximise the water time, as well as reducing anxiety in swimmers so they know what to expect and what is expected of them. So for example, you might want to visit the pool between now and the start of your next academic year or your swim programme and talk to the swim coordinator at the venue about what you want included in your swim block. Take responsibility for the planning, which Alison's going to talk about in a little bit. So when you go to visit the pool, you might want to take a photo of the pool, which can help both the swimmers, parents and support staff. What about taking a video of the venue and the route from the school or the coach into the changing rooms and onto the pool side? This will really help. And Alice and I both have our own swim schools, and we've included videos of what's expected when swimmers come to our venues on our websites. To be honest, we only added them because of COVID, just to make sure that swimmers and parents knew about the one-way systems, about all the protocols we had in place, like coming swim ready and how to use a big supermarket bag to put all your clothes and your noodle and your equipment in. But it was really useful, and the feedback we've had from our parents are that it was really, really helpful, particularly for those children who are on the spectrum, who found it really clear and concise to see a visual prompt such as a video. I'm also organising a top-up swimming week next week with 140 swimmers from years 5 and 6 unable to swim 25 metres. They're all coming to a pool that they've never been to before. So I've sent the schools the photo of the pool, the video, information sheet, so everybody's really clear on what's expected. You might want to at school talk about transport expectations, how they're going to get to the pool. So if they're on the coach, you might want to talk about who they're going to sit with, so it's really efficient when the coach does turn up. You might want to talk about what they need on the coach and the behaviours that's expected. Likewise, if you're walking to the site, you might want to sort out who they're walking with, where you're going to meet and what's expected. Even have a little practice around the playground so they do a good fast pace, so you're not going to waste any valuable pool time. Pool rules. Some of you might have seen on the virtual pool Facebook, I posted a picture somebody sent me in today of water safety posters that their class had created during Drowning Prevention Week last week. Really fun posters, and it's something that could be done before the swim programme starts in the classroom, where you could discuss and create the rules, perhaps design some posters along the themes that I've posted on virtual pool today. But you could think about the rules before they go to the pool, like we've just discussed on the transport, the kit they need, for example, tying your hair back, no jewelry, that sort of thing. What's expected, or what are the rules during the lessons? So listening, holding onto the rail, for example, and then after the lesson. So what's expected? How are they going to change? Are they going to? They've got to change respectfully. Even how they organise their clothes. They don't leave clothes on the floor to get wet, tucking socks into shoes so they don't get lost, etc. So pool rules could be something to be done in the school-based lesson. Likewise, PE. So PE can be a really valuable lesson to support your school swimming lessons. So games that could be played in the water to develop fundamental skills can also be done in the hall and in the PE lessons. So for example, I quite like Netflix. It used to be called the DVD game, but everyone looks at me now saying you're really old. And I've actually changed it to remote control game. So I've got, for example, because I'm a PE teacher by trade, so I've got, I'd have a float or a laminate of a remote control, and then I'd go through the instructions. So play, they would walk, rewind, go backwards, pause, jump up and down, fast forward, they could quickly, all those sorts of actions. They can be done in the PE, they can be done in the hall, but they can also then be transferred into the swimming pool. Very inclusive warm up, which develops agility, speed, coordination, and you can add things in as well. You know, if you want pools, you could have them blowing bubbles in the water, for example. Gears is another PE game where they have to go through the gears of a car. So one, we go slow, and we build up 2, 3, 4, etc. until you're really going fast, and an emergency stop. So that's a really good little PE game that can be included in the water. And of course, ball skills are great to be included in a swimming program. Who doesn't like to play with the ball in the water? Piggy in the middle, passing games, catching games. A full-blown mini water polo game are fantastic games that can be taught in PE and then transferred into the water. In terms of PE, again, obviously changing skills are going to be really support the changing in the swimming lesson. And then entry, exits and entries could be practiced on apparatus in the school gym or hall. Developing upper body strength is really important for water safety exits. I went on a training course years ago. There was a PE advisor back in the days when there was a specific PE advisor, and he was a gymnast specialist, and he talked about the importance of developing upper body strength, particularly when we think of our young people who sit around doing quite a lot of online gaming. So yes, they might have strong thumbs, but actually that upper body strength to pull themselves out of difficulty if they get into difficulty in water is really tricky. So it could be really tricky, and something to be developed in PE. Water safety skills can also be taught both in the classroom and the pool, and as some of you know, we've delivered a useful workshop in this area, and it's available on the Virtual Pool Facebook page as well as the ASWIM UK website. Okay, so that's sort of some ideas to think about even before you go into the swimming pool venue or into the water. So maximising time, making it really clear what's expected of them, and even talking about the rules and developing some activities in their PE.
So one of the areas that we all need to work towards is the national curriculum outcomes, and Lorna's going to put those into chat just in case you're not familiar with them, but it is to swim competently, confidently and proficiently over a distance of at least 25 metres, use a range of strokes effectively, including front crawl, backstroke and breaststroke, and probably the most important is perform safe rescue in a water-based situation. I can't stress enough, I've been teaching a really long time now, and I can't stress enough how important the planning is to the success of whatever program it is that you're going to do. So my question to you is, what assessment criteria will use? This will allow effective planning and attainment so that we can kind of get that sort of written down as evidence as to sort of where they've got to. So I'm just going to talk briefly about the Swim England School Swimming and Water Safety Charter. So we have Swim Picks pack that matches that, and there are 6 awards within that pack, and there's 2 additional awards. So you've got an Aquatic Skills award, and you've also got a Self-Rescue award. The scheme will capture all of the national curriculum outcomes and the abilities from your non-swimmers to your advanced pupils, using the additional awards and teaching them self-rescue. In the aquatics programme, there is also a game of mini polo, and Lorna's already mentioned about perhaps doing, you know, some kind of ball game in a gym and then transferring it. So that will cross into your PE under the heading of games. If you've got children with SEND needs, there is a School Swimming and Water Safety Foundation award scheme, and we've got a Swim Picks pack to match that as well. So you may consider using that one. This one has 5 awards plus a Water Safety Awareness Award. You may have your own outcomes or your own scheme that you may use. I just want to share with you, sort of with the planning, I'm very visual, but with both the packs in the swim picks, the schools pack and the foundation, we do have these posters. One thing that's quite nice is they can go up on the wall so the swimmers can see what's expected within those awards. But from a planning point of view, it's quite easy to see what each award is asking. So therefore the planning may be a little bit easier. So you've got your 6 awards here. You've got your self-rescue, and you can see things like if you fall in, float, breathe, relax. We've got huddles in there, cold water shock, etc. And we've also got our aquatic skills, which has many different skills in it, including that mini polo. In the foundation set, we have 5 awards. And the one I like most, and Lorna's spoken about the preparation, is this number 1 award, where you can see it's got pictures of all the different types of equipment that may be used. You've got different ways of entering the pool using hoists and chair hoists. You've got things like shallow and deep end. So it's a really nice way of introducing someone that may be a little bit anxious about actually getting in. On this one, they don't actually have to get into the pool. It's all from the side. And you've got your water safety awareness awards here. And you've got a communication set in this one. And I'm doing a project at the moment. You may have seen it on the virtual pool. It's called Sign with Swim Pics. I've just done 5 more videos, which will be going out by the end of this week, so that you can learn to say stop, go again, using BSL sign language if you want to. And they're all available on our ASWIM website training page. So the last thing I'm going to share with you is planning. And there's so many ways of planning, but the important point to make here is that you need to share this planning with the teachers that are delivering your swimming. So if you're doing that yourself, then obviously you're going to have the plan. If you're going to a leisure centre where they are delivering the swimming for you, you might want to think about yourself as a school. What award scheme are we going to use? Possibly plan out a 6-week plan, maybe using these Swim Picks planners or your own, and then weekly planners, so that we are on some kind of target and thinking about what we want to achieve. And I think that's so important to work with the swimming teachers that you will be using. So you can download these from our website. They are free. So I'm going to stop sharing now.
So we've discussed what we're going to do before we go to the pool. We've looked at our assessment and how we're going to assess our swimmers. And part of the assessment also comes when they go to that pool for the very first time. And this is where we're quite passionate about trying to avoid wasting valuable pool time in just getting them perhaps to swim a width across or walk a width across, so you can see what group or what ability group they should go into. So often the first lesson can be what we call a dip test, with swimmers just swimming the one width. So, and it is understandable, because if schools aren't or swimming teachers aren't sure of the swimmer's ability, then obviously you want to do it safely, and we can't rely on parents' assessment. I'll give you an example. I used to organise the borough swimming galas, and one school came in and I could automatically tell that they were non-swimmers in this quite serious swimming gala. So I did ask them if they could do the warm-up in the shallow end, whereas normally we just take, get them in up the deep end, they swim their lengths. Sure enough, most of them couldn't swim, which would have been an absolute disaster had I got them swimming their 25 metres race. But the school had said they'd asked the parents, who'd all said that they could swim. But when I asked the swimmers, who were obviously a bit demoralised, bless them, they said that they could only swim in armbands in the shallow end. So it is important to err on the side of caution, particularly if you've never seen them in the water. And the dip test, as we call it, is fine, but as long as it's done quickly and efficiently within 10 minutes. So it's sit, swivel, safe entry. Let's see what you can do across to the other side. Or you could be revolutionary and do a game to assess the swimmers while they are performing the activity. So I'll give you an example. So in my school, I might do crab walking, which is hands on the rail or the side of the pool, feet on the walls. Their feet are off the bottom. If they're not happy doing that, their feet stay on the bottom. If you need adult support, the arms are underneath the adult if you've got special needs children, and obviously they're walking along the pool with the side of the pool with them. So we do crab walking, get them to change direction. I do loads of different activities to make sure they're listening. Space for your face, blow bubbles, rotation round, keep holding onto the rail. And then I get them being fishes. So I just ask them to travel across to the other side of the pool in any way they want. They could go forwards and then maybe walk backwards if they can't go on their back. And then we put it into a game where half the class are crab walkers and the other half are fishes. So we add a little bit of numeracy in there because we keep the score of how many whips each person swims, and we add it all up, do add some averages. While the crab walkers crab around the outside of the pool, when they get to the end, they shout stop in a very loud voice. Who doesn't like children? What child doesn't like to shout in the top of their voice? So they shout stop, and the fishes stop swimming. That gives you half a class being safe holding onto the wall, half the class are actually moving, and you can quickly gauge what ability level and what group they should go in if you're assessing your swimmers. So that's just one idea. I talked about the mini polo activities, and obviously Alice has mentioned it in Swimpics scheme of work as well, of the plans. Just throwing a ball, playing piggy in the middle, something small, something simple but fun, gives you a really good indication if they're confident in the water. So that's just an idea about some activities to do in the pool to assess them. And if you are going to do the dip test where you're just going to get them sitting in, perhaps do them at least 5, 6 at a time. So it's bang, 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 and you're done in 10 minutes. Okay, moving on, using games. So using games for warm-ups can be really, and contrasting activities are really important to make your lessons inclusive, fun, purposeful, because obviously all the warm-ups and the contrast activities can meet the outcomes of the criteria that you're working towards. So it's really important. Obviously the traffic light game, I'm sure you're aware of. Swimpics have got the traffic light colours. You can do whatever activity you want linked in with those colours that meet the outcomes of your lesson. So a red might be submerging skills, the amber might be a flotation on your back, a green might be a rotation of spinning around on the spot. You've got various purposeful songs and activities. What's the time, Mr. Shark's one of our favourites at school, where we collect the numbers and actually indicate which number it is by lifting the number up. And obviously all the water safety activities are fantastic for not only getting the children to remember the water safety code or the beach flags, but also doing lots of core aquatic skills within that. So there's some ideas for you in terms of purposeful, fun activities which are inclusive as well for your swimming lessons, and to add them into your plans for your block of swimming.
Okay, so just the next section really is within school swimming is developing strokes. But I think, again, a question for you is what skills make them safe in the water? And I think that's the question we need to ask ourselves. So things like, can they float and regain standing? Can they travel and regain standing? And do they have aquatic breathing skills? So really, if you're developing a lesson, sort of those skills, this is really for me, are really important to keep them safe. Once they have those skills, then we can look at starting to develop the strokes. But I think for school swimming, it is really about developing the strokes to make them safe, so that they can get themselves out of trouble if, God forbid, that happens. So some of you may have heard of the Break It Down book. This red book is actually designed alongside the school swimming and water safety for the school swimming and the foundation. So what the book does is it does with each stroke, so all 4 competitive strokes, you've got a reminder of what BLAPT is. So you've got your body position, leg action, arm action, breathing and timing. For each stage and award that you have, you've got the relevant Swimpics cards that would help with that particular stroke. You've got teaching methods using whole, part, whole for assessment at the beginning and at the end of the lesson, and choosing your correct progressive practice to teach the development of perhaps the leg action, for an example. And here are listed the progressive practices, reducing flotation aids, etc. And we've got teaching points that are relevant to go with that. The other thing I quite like about this book is Lorna spoke at the beginning about things like learning pool rules. We've mentioned social stories. There is a social story in this book about visiting the pool with some Swim Picks cards to kind of visually sort of share that story. So it can be quite a useful resource to have to get those progressive practices in. And the last thing I want to talk to you about is really thinking about themes that we can use. And I do think it's kind of really exciting again, swimming, where we were really restricted through COVID of not being able to use equipment and all sorts of things. I think our lessons had to become quite rigid. But now, you know, that's kind of not out the window as such, but we are now able to use different equipment, and it's so engaging. So you can kind of see on the Easter theme here, we've got egg and spoon races whilst they're practicing travelling. You could have a holiday theme, Christmas and Halloween, and I know they're kind of the obvious ones, but I'm sure there's lots of other ideas, and I know Lorna's got a few to share, so I'm just going to hand over to Lorna just to share a couple of the themes that she's used.
Well, it's only what I've been doing today in the pool. So today's themes were Wimbledon. So we had our tennis lessons going on. So we had two teams, red and blue, and we had the balls in the pool, and they'd be ball boys, ball girls, and they had to travel, pick up the ball, put them in the cone. We saw which team won. Then we had the plastic rackets that you've got in your PE. We had holding the rackets and just passing it to partners just so they get a feel of the racket. For those that could, we then balance things, not a ball because that was too tricky in the water, but we had a quoit on top of the racket to develop balance skills. And then we actually even got a rope across. That was our net, because we talked about what we needed. And we had but we had 10 balls each side, and the aim was to get the ball over the net, and the other team didn't return it. So we were then scoring points, and obviously the least wins. And then obviously today I also think the S lesson, I had an S lesson, so summer, but then we thought about swimming, submersion skills, and lovely 7-year-old special needs child today talked about sinking, because I said what other word could mean going under, or a bit like a submarine, sculling, so lots of lessons. We were snakes, slithering for that streamlined body position. So that was my lessons today. So I just thought I'd share that with you because I do love a theme. So we've looked at some activities that you can do within your lessons, some thematic approaches, something you might want to include perhaps at the end, or you could do it in the middle, I suppose. But at the end of your block of swimming is to include a bit of competition. So an inclusive gala competition, it could be intra-school, so within your school. So we had a local school to me, they organise every year a gala for years 3 to 6. So every child's involved, everyone gets a medal. Who doesn't like a medal? You might want to do it as an inter-school. You might be brave enough and ask another school to come and join you for a particular year group, or just a year group that you've got swimming for that term. You might want to do a virtual gala. Penathlon organise an amazing virtual event that we do every year, and I'll be talking about that more when we have our next virtual pool meeting in September. But if you are going to organise an inclusive meeting, inclusive gala, and I say we will be talking about that more next term in September, but the STEP principle is really important to consider. So in terms of your space, so we've got here, this is an integrated gala that I've organised for decades, actually about 30 years now. We've missed 2 with COVID, but you can see we've got our learners here at swimmers in the shallow end. We've got the leaders here blocking the deep end, because that's really deep up there, because they've got no concept of the deep end. We've got our lane dividers down to make it really clear of the space that they're swimming in. The task is to travel up to pick up a float from the leader and bring it back to the side and get going until all the floats have gone. The equipment, we've got a raft that makes it inclusive, perhaps for someone who's a little bit nervous. And the people, we've got a mixed teams of mainstream and special needs students from special needs schools. So it's a really good event, an integrated gala that I've been organising for years. But we are going to talk about that more in September. So if you're interested in learning how to organise and plan and deliver a gala, then join us in September. Okay, so that's the end of our workshop on inspiration, or inspiring you for your next academic year. And I hope it's just, I mean, it's a whistle-stop tour, isn't it, of thinking about what you can do in school to maximise pool time, how you're going to assess your swimmers, using the Swim England Charter, using your own assessment criteria, how you're going to assess swimmers when they get to the pool efficiently and quickly, so you don't waste a whole lesson assessing a child, assessing a class, and then only swimming a width perhaps for the whole half hour. Then it's thinking about purposeful activities, purposeful warm-ups, purposeful contrasting activities, and also about your strokes and use of the blacks and the progressions, and finally galas and competitions that you could add into the program. And importantly, as Alison said, planning. Have a think. What do you want included in your swim program that's going to make it really effective, meeting the national curriculum targets, and also have a dialogue with your centres as well that you're using. Okay, before I stop sharing, just to share with you, we've got these workshops coming up next term. So one on autism, ADHD, dyslexia and dyspraxia. They are hour-long workshops, and they will be posted on the Virtual Pool Facebook if you want to know further, but perhaps save the dates: 6th of October, 10th of November and 1st of December. And then finally, our virtual pool, as I said, we're going to explain how to organise an inclusive competition on September the 19th. We've got a session on sensory swimming. And the 25th, exciting news, save the date, because we're going to have a virtual pool live. So we're going to hopefully organise a special education needs and disabilities conference. We're going to keep it small to start with, so it'll be limited spaces, and we're going to have various workshops available in the morning, 10 till 2. So that's something in South East London, so that's quite exciting.